One of the best ways that we start new relationships with clients on the ecom side is really auditing their account. And when it comes to audits, a lot of people are familiar with kind of like the checklist audits, really are just not good. There's no way to have just a checklist with really small points on what's working, what's not working in an account, because every account's so unique. And also strategies are unique per accounts. We talk about different strategies that work for different types of stores. So it's hard to have a kind of one size fits all checklist. Really the best thing you can do when it comes to auditing or getting an audit is get an audit from somebody who's willing to look at it as more of like a consulting approach. So based off of everything that's running the account, what's not working, what's working, what can be improved based off what's not working, what's causing things to do poorly, and really analyzing the things that are really effective within the campaigns and the overall account, as opposed to having just, like I said, that superficial checklist, which might give you surface level information, but it doesn't truly tell you how the account's gonna grow or what needs to be fixed in the account to make it scale to another level. So when it comes to audits, I'm gonna go over exactly what we look for in audits and what I do personally to see, if the store is doing, let's say, 50K in revenue from the Google Ads account, what I would try to find to diagnose whether or not the account go from 50K to 500K per month, and what would have to change for the strategies to do that, and so on. But the biggest thing that I look for first, before looking into strategy at all, is gonna be the consistency of data. So the best way you can do that is really look into the account and do the drop down based off of conversion data, conversion items. So what's gonna happen is on the campaign side, it's gonna give you a drop down when you segment. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna show you all of the conversion actions that are pulling in data as a primary action. There's two ways to look at this. The first one's a little bit hard to understand without a visual. The second's a bit easier to find. That's gonna be going to the goals tab, then conversions and summary. This is gonna show you all active conversion actions you have set up in the account and what are secondary and what are primary. The biggest thing you're looking for is making sure that the only conversion action coming into the account is gonna be one primary that's based off of the conversion value per purchase. So really just tracking as a primary conversion action the sales that happen and the monetary value of those sales back into the campaigns. A lot of the times what we find is we'll find multiple conversion actions set to primary and it actually overinflates the data of the account. And when that happens, it almost makes everything else obsolete. You can still get a tell on what's working, what's not working, just judgment of the fact that data is coming in exponentially and you kind of boil that down. But what happens is all decisions you make within an account are based off that data. So if they have, let's say, double attribution or things skewed or overinflation, what's gonna happen is a lot of the times they're gonna have a lot of patterns of poor decision-making in the account from the past, and that'll also cause the inability to scale too. So the biggest thing is is there one primary conversion action? Is that gonna be conversion sale data coming in? And if not, what else is coming in? Once you get past that, then you're gonna be looking at the actual account structure, settings that are being used, different campaigns are running. We're gonna go over that. I actually have a visual. This is a really cool calculator that we built. Very simple, but based off of the score and the checkboxes of each of these questions, it'll actually give you a grade. Then based on that grade, it will calculate you how much revenue you're potentially missing from the Google Ads channel. Now, obviously it's a deduction based off of formula that we created, so it's probably not gonna be exact, but it'll give a really good generalization of what likely could be lost on the Google Ads side if you're not doing all these things. So we're gonna go through each one, and I'm gonna give you a quick explanation as to why it's important and why we look for it. The first is gonna be, what types of campaigns that are being ran. So when it comes to these campaigns, not always you're gonna run every single one of these. Most of the time it's probably gonna be 80% of these, and that 80% is gonna be skewed based off of what store is being ran. But as the average store, you're gonna have most of these running. And if you don't have most of these running, it's probably because of either one, you didn't know how to set them up, two, you had somebody set them up and not do it efficiently, or three, they just tried it and failed because they were ran poorly and you had bad data come in, which meant that you probably lost money, right? And then they paused it at some point and said, okay, probably not working for this store. But most of the time, there's almost always a way to run these types of campaigns profitably. It's just a matter more so of scale, right? So they should exist in your account. It's just a matter of how much each of them have scaled up and how much of a dent they're making in the overall goal of the ROI that you're trying to go after. So the first is gonna be an all product performance max campaign. This is a performance max campaign that includes all products in the store. Very simple. Usually there's gonna be a mix depending on the store you have. It's gonna either be an asset group per category of the store or a catch-all asset group that's gonna have assets for the overgeneralization of assets for the store. So you're gonna wanna make sure to have one of those. Next to that, and once again, quick explanation, you want that because it's gonna give the algorithm power to find which of your products will be able to scale out the most. And also it'll drip in sales after those small products that you might not think make a huge difference in sales revenue, but it adds up. If you have high SKUs in your store and you get some sales for each SKU, or it kind of trickles down, it will add up to make a difference. But it's important because you want to have the algorithm to have some say in the scale of the PMax side of things. Next is going to be a little bit more control. That's going to be a top product performance max campaign. This is a performance max campaign segmented to only the top revenue generating products. The purpose of this is to have a segmented budget, so you can force budget with the performance max campaign onto these products. Between the two, that's going to cover your performance max side of things, and it's going to give you, one, it's going to give you the algorithm side of the strategy for the campaign, and then two, it's going to give you a more controlled approach to make sure that you're dedicating budget to the top products and those scale heavily. So we're going to make a little scribble because we talked about those. Next is going to be a shopping campaign. I won't over explain these because the concept's very similar. If you haven't seen other videos that we have on our YouTube channel, we put out videos that are dedicated to strategies based off of different types of stores. So make sure to watch those if you want an in-depth explanation of why we do certain things for specific types of stores, low, high tickets, certain industries, things of that nature. But same thing, you're going to have an all product shopping campaign that's going to allow the algorithm to pull more weight on what's going to scale the most within the products. And then the other one's going to be top product. Once again, simple concept. You're going to have this so you can control a fixated budget, forcing scale into the products that should yield the most revenue into your store. Next is going to be search campaigns. This is going to be a bit more of an intricate build out because when it comes to search, the way you approach this is a lot different for most stores than PMax and shopping. PMax and shopping are more algorithm based, so you are setting up with the best possible assets, but the algorithm is pulling more of the weight when it comes to the scale. When it comes to search, the scale comes from the control that you have in most cases and the way you're segmenting out that control. Search thrives off of segmentation. We won't go super in depth here, but the point of segmentation is to increase relevancy. And when you have increased relevancy per what you're targeting on search, Google rewards you. Then you also have higher conversion rate because you have more relevancy on the back end of the assets. So relevancy is really the goal here. And the way you're going to segment out the campaigns is based off that relevancy of your store. It's going to be a little bit simpler if you have a low SKU store, like if you have a couple of products. You're not going to have a ton of segmentation just because you don't have a ton of products to segment. But if you have high SKUs, that's really where this shines. So the first is going to be a search campaign targeting high intent product terms. So these are going to be terms based off your products that are people looking for that type of product, that are in the market for it but don't know exactly about your specific product. Maybe your product follows along with the main market product. You have something unique and it's I guess symptom based or need based. But a lot of the times these are going to be terms that are people searching for something very, very similar to your product. Longer tail, we have the example in here, melatonin gummies with natural ingredients. You're selling that exact product. You have a name behind it, but they're not aware of that. They just know that they want that type of product. So it's going to be terms that fit into that intent category. And the way this is chopped up is a lot based on intent as well. It's going to be based on the categories of intent. We have a video on this as well, how we go through intent, but in this case, that's how it's chopped up. Next is going to be on the store level. So the first one was product based. Next is going to be store terms. So people who are searching the best brand for sleep gummies, for example, basically terms that are going to be relevant to the overarching store that you're selling the products from. And that's where you're going to want segmentation because these will both convert at different rates. They are different levels of intent, but also the way they'll convert and the scale they'll convert are going to be different. For example, people who are searching for specific products a lot of the times will have less scale than somebody searching for the entire store, just because it's a little bit more boiled down on the side of intent, right? So you're going to want to separate these just for the reason of they're going to have different levels of scale, and you want dedicated budget to make sure that they get into that scale. After that, it's going to go into more broad-based terms. So after you have that high intent segmented and you want to test in a broad base, that's going to be, for example, sleeping gummies. These are people who are aware of the general product, but they're not super focused on the exact type of products. They're one step of awareness farther in that process in the funnel. So the goal here is to see, can you convert that type of traffic? Because if you can, there's a lot more scale there. We talk about anytime there is more scale, generally it's gonna be broader terms, which means they're harder to convert. But if they do convert, you have a lot more scale to increase your budget and get into for the store. The key here is if you can convert that, that's gonna be an area which will yield a lot more revenue for their store. So for example, with this level of campaign, you should be able to squeeze some level of scale out of that. Once we pass broad-based terms, and once again, this is a checklist based off of the types of campaigns that should be ran. One of the things we look for as well is, are they trying to accomplish this, but they're doing it all mixed together? And that's kind of in between, because you will get some level of revenue from that, But anytime you try to mix stuff up and just dump things into one campaign, Google kind of operates in a haywire way, and it does not segment budget in the way Facebook does properly. So like Facebook will narrow in budget on what's working really well. Google, no matter what works, it'll just keep spreading budget around and just try to spend where it's easiest to spend. So the best thing you can do, like I said, is segment, because if you don't segment, Google's gonna make those decisions, and Google just does not do it as well as, for example, Facebook does. It's a bummer. It'd make life a lot easier if it did do a good job with that, but it just doesn't, so you have to deal with it. Next is gonna be pain-based terms. So people who are not product aware, but they're pain aware. People searching things like, why am I sleeping so bad? They have the problem, they just don't know the solution yet. So these are really like symptom-based terms. I say symptom, that's not really a play on like medical terms. It's more so they're aware of that pain and you want to sell them the product for that. These are probably some of the harder terms to convert, but if you have a really good brand, you have really good products, it's going to open up a lot of scale for your store. After that is the last main search campaign, which is going to be competitor terms. So example, ZQL sleep gummies, maybe you have a more organic, better option and you can put it in front of their traffic, steal that brand awareness and convert them on your store. The key to this campaign is just having a very, very good product. Because you're stealing traffic from another brand, you're also trying to break them away from the brand allegiance. So people trust ZQL in this scenario. Why should they trust you? They're gonna trust you if you have great content, great branding, great products, and they're gonna try you out. And if you have a great product, truly, they're gonna keep using you and you're gonna have, later lifetime value from that customer. But it's hard because you wanna break them away from a brand they already trust. So you have to have a superior brand from what you're trying to target. Next is going to be RLSA search campaigns. So RLSA just means remarketing the search ad. This is a unique search campaign. This is basically people who have already visited your website. You're using them as a remarketing audience. And because of that, you can target broader terms. So maybe you want to target the term sleep, but that's a super broad term. You would never do that in a cold market. But because they've already visited your store and you're targeting that term, you're just trying to get people back in the broadest, cheapest way back to the store, because you already know that you've paid the money that you've paid because they're high intent, right? So when it comes to RLSA search campaigns, it's more so remarketing. You really can go very broad with the targeting because you already know that they're high intent based off what they searched the first time to get to your store. Or maybe they came from Facebook, other platforms, wherever they're from. You already paid to get them there, so you're just trying to get them back. Simple remarketing concept. Last is gonna be YouTube remarketing. So same theory. If they've gone to your store, just trying to get them back in the easiest, cheapest way. And if you have very good video creatives, or at least video creatives that are working on the Facebook side, you can put those on YouTube, put them as unlisted, and then launch them in a YouTube campaign targeting that remarketing audience. This is also very low-hanging fruit on the YouTube side of things. There's other YouTube campaigns you can run that are low-hanging fruit, but in most cases, this is kind of like a minimal campaign type that you'd want in there to actually want to yield some easy traffic back to the store. So those are the main campaigns we're looking for to see that are being ran in an account. Like I said, not all of these are gonna work perfectly for your exact store, but the point is they should be ran in some capacity because it's more gonna be a question of scale, not a question of whether they work. A lot of these are really no-brainer. Now, this does come down to the quality of product, right? Because if you don't have a good product to market fit, half of these might not work at all. This is really coming down to the store that's scaled to the point of doing maybe mid six figures with other channels, and Google's a weak point for their brand. Because if you have that level of product awareness and product development, product proof of concept, these should work in some theory for your products. You have that in the other channels. So this is not for the store that's maybe doing 30, 50K a month with other channels. They don't have that proof of concept yet. This is for the proven brands that just cannot figure out how to scale on the Google side of things. Let's get into some of the more, not necessarily ambiguous areas, but a little bit less particular than actual campaign types. We already talked about what the tracking's like, so we'll mark that one off. But the next one is search campaign segmentation. This is what I talked about is, was this accomplished before with all these different types of search targeting we talked about? And was it lumped together in the same campaigns? If it was, that's definitely gonna hurt your scalability. You had the right idea maybe, but the execution is just not there. And execution with strategy on the build side of Google is where the scale comes from. So that's gonna be an area that's very important. Next is gonna be optimization score. Optimization score isn't a make or break it, but it will determine the CPMs that you get through campaigns. So let's say you have a really low optimization score per campaign. Let's say it's 30, 40%. That will hurt the overall results because it dictates the cost of traffic coming into the campaigns. So you really wanna make sure that that's gonna be north of, let's say, 80%. So it'll definitely help when it comes to CPA, and CPA is a big dictator of scale, right? If you have a low enough CPA, you're willing to spend more on scale, but that will be something that definitely hurts if it's too low. Next is going to be the average quality score. So for keywords, same concept there. We won't over explain it. You don't want to be below, let's say 5, 6. If you're 7, 8, 9, 10, that's a safe zone. That's going to be something that also dictates relevancy. So like relevancy, as I mentioned, will reward you with cheaper traffic. Cheaper traffic means you can scale farther. So you want to make sure that you have a good quality score. Are your average campaigns scaling profitably? So a lot of the times we get into accounts and we see that they're running campaigns just because they want to run something. And a lot of the times you can go in there and optimize through. We have a separate video on optimizing accounts. But the biggest thing is, are 3 out of 5 of the campaigns negative in ROI? Are they below that break even or that scale ROI? That's going to be a really big sign as to this is probably set up in an inefficient way. So that's going to be a broader indicator. Are they built with as much context grouping and relevance as possible? That's going to play into the context of all the different campaigns we talked about on the search side of things. PMAX too, PMAX and shopping as well, but it's more of an overarching concept that we already kind of over-explained, so I won't go too much into that. Is the revenue coming from your Google ads achieving close to 30% net profit? That's going to be relevant to ROI. As far as an account as a whole, if you have all this running and things have just been seasoned, built out really well, perfect, you're still not having a level of scale on the Google ads side. Sometimes stores just don't have scale on the Google ads side. It's rare, sometimes it does happen. Sometimes Google ads also scales farther than Facebook. These are kind of outliers. But if you're doing everything perfectly and you're not getting the scale, it's probably going to come down to the product market fit. It could come down to your assets. It's going to be off platform. That's when you stop looking at Google as the problem and what's happening off of the platform that's causing the lack of scale. So that's one thing that you really want to look at. Like if you do everything really well, sometimes the problem is not on the platform side, it's more on the asset side and how you're presenting the product. Last is going to be, is your Google Ads account scaled to the level you feel is successful? This is more of a subjective question. So this is something that you want to ask yourself based off of everything you know about the market, the brand, competitors. Do you think you're there? A lot of times the answer is going to be no to that, especially if you don't have a good team on the account. I won't answer that one for you because it's specific to the person, but most of the time you can get a gauge on that based off of competitor research, seeing, is the average competitor having some level of scale on Google, and are you at a 1/5 of that? Chances are you're probably going to do a lot of things that aren't, going well in the Google Ads account. And the last thing is really judging all that based off the revenues. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, this is going to generate a score that's going to weigh off of the revenue that's coming in from the Google Ads account and then also the revenue that's coming in from the store. I'll explain that really quick. We're not going to do a live example just because this is a picture and not the actual tool. We will put the link to the tool in the description of this video so you can play around with it if you want. But really what we see as a trend is generally Google Ads will, for the average store, bring in about 30% of the store revenue. So if your store is doing, let's say, 500K a month, Google should, in theory, be generating about 150K of that. If you don't have Google as a main channel and you're doing, let's say, 600K a month with everything else, Google should be able to generate 200, 300K worth of revenue. So that's really an indicator that based off the trend of the other store revenue channels, is Google following the line at that pace? Like I said, sometimes Google outpaces Facebook. Sometimes, most of the time, Facebook's gonna outpace Google because Facebook's creating the market, Google's capturing demand. But in most cases, we'll see that Google Ads, if ran very efficiently and effectively, it'll generate about 30% of the revenue for the store. And then the last thing is gonna be how that works in the calculations. I'll let you play around with the tool. It's gonna be very subjective to your individual score and then also the revenue for your store, what Google is bringing in, and then it'll generate that number for you. So if you have any questions about this or want us to check out your account, want us to audit it, more than happy to help. Make sure to reach out to us on our socials, which are always in the descriptions. You can also email us at Chasen, CHASEN, at adsronin, ADSRONIN.com. And I'll go through it personally, check out what's running in your account and give you my, consulting advice on if we think that we can carry it much farther, what you can do without us to carry it farther, or if there's certain dead ends you're hitting. But the data always tells, and almost every time we're able to find big issues within the account that are stunting the scale. So thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. We always appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video.